Before we deconstruct the brutal psychological collapse currently sweeping through the global software engineering sector and the exact mathematical reason why artificial intelligence is driving top-tier developers into a state of structural depression, I have exactly 3 critical questions for you to answer in the comments below. Number 1. Are you currently operating in a software team that is aggressively pushing tokenmaxxing and AI code generation, completely blind to the fact that you are actively destroying the craft you spent your life perfecting? Number 2. Do you understand the lethal structural difference between being a lazy engineer who outsources their cognitive bandwidth to a machine and being a craftsman who is silently suffocating under the burden of reviewing the machine's hallucination? Number 3. If your entire professional identity is rapidly shifting from writing elegant software to simply bot-sitting an autonomous agent, do you possess the sovereign architectural framework to pivot, or will you allow your career to be optimized into misery? Let me know your answer. For those who are new to the channel, I'm Dr. HR. I approach the global labor and capital market not with emotional comforting advice, but as a cold structural algorithmic system. I hold a PhD in human resources, a master's from prestigious Tata Institute of Social Sciences (TISS) in Mumbai, and a bachelor's in computer engineering. Operating on the ground here in Dubai since 2010, consulting for Tier 1 corporate entities, sovereign wealth funds, and apex tech founders across the Middle East and India, I monitor exactly how global talent acquires absolute leverage and how obsolete incentive structures destroys biological value. The market does not reward you for generating massive volumes of broken AI code. It rewards absolute, uncompromising structural integrity. Right now, the technology sector is facing a silent, catastrophic biological bottleneck. Software engineers are facing an identity crisis that borders on depression. The introduction of generative AI into the coding pipeline was supposed to be a utopia of productivity. Instead, it has fractured engineering teams, killed the joy of the craft, and introduced a fatal dynamic of AI sprawl. Before I completely dismantle the illusion of AI-driven coding productivity, expose the exact mechanics of a new engineering divide, and give you the precise architectural blueprint to escape the burden of bot-sitting before it destroys your career, hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell. I post daily videos showing you exactly how to navigate the global labor and capital market using cold, hard engineering logic. You do not want to miss these execution protocols. Stop reviewing broken code. Start engineering your sovereignty. Grab a notebook, it is time to audit the crisis. Phase 1. The tokenmaxxing frenzy, the illusion of productivity. We must first diagnose the exact debilitating economic illusion that is currently paralyzing engineering departments from Silicon Valley to Bangalore. In a June 22, 2026 report by Business Insider, the harsh reality of a modern software development cycle was exposed. Companies are aggressively pushing their developers to use AI coding tools, operating under the desperate hope that this will drive productivity upward. This corporate mandate has triggered what is now known as tokenmaxxing frenzy. Tokenmaxxing is a structural pathology. It occurs when organizations incentivize the raw volume of AI output over the actual coherence and stability of an underlying system. Management looks at a dashboard, sees that the engineering team generated 50,000 lines of code this week using an enterprise LLM, and incorrectly assume they have achieved a massive increase in operational velocity. They are wrong. They have not increased velocity, they have exponentially increased the technical depth. As a computer engineer, I can assure you that writing code was never the actual bottleneck in software development. The bottleneck has always been thinking, designing the architecture, mapping the edge cases, and ensuring that the logic perfectly aligns with the physical reality of a business problem. By forcing developers to prioritize AI-generated volume, organizations are flooding their own repositories with synthetic, highly plausible, but structurally flawed logic. Didi Sass, a partner at venture capital firm Menlo Ventures, who invest deeply in AI and enterprise softwares, confirms that software engineers are paying a severe psychological price for this Silicon Valley tokenmaxxing frenzy. They are generating code at the speed of light, but they are completely losing control of the machine. Phase 2, the new engineering divide, the lazy versus the craftsman. This push for the AI generation has not created a unified, superpowered workforce. Instead, it has violently fractured engineering departments into two distinct, highly hostile camps. According to Das, a growing divide is emerging inside the engineering team. We must run a forensics audit on these two new archetypes. 1. The lazy engineer. The first camp consists of what Das categorizes as lazy engineer. These are the biological operators who have completely surrendered their cognitive sovereignty to the algorithm. They rely heavily on AI to write their code, answer their technical questions, and prepare their updates and complete the assigned task with absolute minimal human engagement. To the untrained eye of a mid-level manager, the lazy engineer looks like a 10x developer. They are closing zero tickets at record speed. They are pushing massive pull requests every afternoon. But their output is a synthetic illusion. They do not deeply understand the code they are pushing. They are merely acting as a biological proxy, blindly routing LLM hallucinations directly into the corporate code base. 2. The craftsman. The second camp consists of a craftsman. These are the highly experienced, deeply technical engineers who actually understand the physics of the system. The tragedy of the 2026 labor market is that these craftsmen are being violently punished for their expertise. Because the lazy engineers are flooding the system with massive volumes of unverified AI code, the entire burden of understanding, reviewing, and fixing that flood of machines-generated garbage falls squarely on the shoulders of the craftsmen. The equation governing their daily existence is a recipe for a clinical burnout. Well, the equation looks like cognitive burnout equals to the volume of unverified AI output divided by the available craftsman bandwidth. Das states the reality brutally. The craftsmen are tired, very tired. The entire burden of review and the entire burden of actual comprehension falls on them. Phase 3. The death of a craft and the rising of the bot setting. Why is this divide causing an identity crisis that borders on depression? Because it strikes at the very core of what it means to be an engineer. You did not spend 4 years studying discrete mathematics, data structures, and algorithmic logic so that you could spend your 9 to 5 reading broken code written by a statistical prediction engine. As AI makes the actual generation of the code easier, the reviewing and the maintaining of that code has mathematically become the new suffocating bottleneck. The role of the software engineer is undergoing a forced, non-consensual shift. Engineers report that their core function is pivoting rapidly away from writing software and moving towards reviewing, managing, and validating machine-generated work. This phenomena is echoing the rise of a bot sitting. You are no longer an architect building a cathedral. You are a glorified babysitter supervising an AI, fixing its continuous mistakes and desperately trying to validate its work before it destroys the production environment. When you spend your entire day managing the hallucinations of a machine, you experience a total loss of flow state. Das notes that some engineers are finding themselves completely buried under a mountain of pull requests, while dangerous bugs increasingly slip past them into the production environment. The craft they loved is dead, Das wrote. The joy of sitting in a quiet room, wrestling with the complex logical puzzle, and forging an elegant, highly optimized solution from scratch has been eradicated. It has been replaced by exhausting, high-friction reality of cleaning up the synthetic mess left behind by lazy colleagues and over-eager algorithms. This change is forcing some engineers to deeply rethink exactly where their value to the market actually lies. If their life skill is no longer useful for writing code, what is their purpose? Phase 4. The AI sprawl, the enterprise trap. We must elevate this analysis from individual engineers to the macroeconomic enterprise level. Why are the corporations allowing this psychological destruction to happen? They are the victim of the AI sprawl. Amanda Hoover, at Business Insider precisely described AI sprawl as a chaotic state where workers are juggling multiple AI tools, constantly duplicating work and generating ever-increasing volume of raw output without any clear evidence that the companies are actually becoming substantially more effective. The C-suite has hypnotized by the marketing of an enterprise AI vendor. They purchased Microsoft Copilot, Cursor, and custom Codex integration, demanding that their team use them to boast ROI. But because there is no rigorous underlying deep logic architecture governing these tools are deployed, the result is absolute sprawl. Where is attention the most destructive? According to Das, while many companies do successfully integrate AI, the friction is incredibly common at a large organization where the sheer volume of AI-generated output is growing much faster than the engineering team's biological ability to actually evaluate it. Specifically, this catastrophic failure tends to happen in bigger companies that are older than 10 years and which possesses a higher variance in talent. If you are operating in a legacy conglomerate, perhaps an older telecommunication firm, a traditional banking institution, or a massive logistics provider, you have a dangerous mix of veteran craftsmen and newly hired, highly dependent, lazy developer. The legacy companies lack the agility of an AI native startup. They apply the 2026 AI generation tools to 2016 monolithic code bases, creating a hyper-accelerated collision of a synthetic output and legacy fragility. It happens a lot, Das confirmed. Phase 5. The regional arbitrage, the India-UAE execution grid. We must strictly apply this structural vulnerability to the macroeconomic realities of the India-UAE talent corridor, where the software engineering identity crisis is reaching a boiling point. The Indian GCC burnout matrix. India houses the largest concentration of software engineers on the planet. The Global Capability Center (GCCs) in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune are engine rooms from the world's legacy tech infrastructure. In these massive, high-variance talent pool, often operating inside companies that are well over 10 years old, the bot-setting crisis is an epidemic. Indian management structures notoriously prioritize volume and metric. Lines of code, ticket closed, over unquantifiable elegance. The lazy engineer in these GCCs are using AI to spam pull requests to hit their KPI. The Indian craftsmen, the principal engineers, and the technical architects are being crushed. They're working 14 hours a day, not building new systems, but desperately auditing the AI-generated code of junior developers to prevent their offshore deliverable from collapsing. The depression and identity crisis here is compounded by the fear that if they complain about the AI, they will be labeled resistant to innovation and terminated. The Dubai D33 agility mandate. Conversely, in the UAE, the market operates on an accelerated, ruthless logic dictated by the Dubai economic agenda of D33. The capital flows are massive, particularly in sovereign tech and highly integrated real estate platform. If you are an expat software engineer moving to DIFC, Dubai International Finance Center, to work for a major legacy enterprise 10 plus years old, you will step directly into the AI sprawl. The local executives want to proudly announce they are AI-driven, resulting in massive tokenmaxxing. However, the sovereign architect in Dubai realizes that they cannot afford to burn their peak cognitive hours acting as a bot sitter for lazy peers. To survive in the high-cost UAE environment, you must refuse the burden of a manual review. You must transition your skill. If the market is flooded with synthetic code, your value is no longer in writing or reviewing lines. It is a system, governance, and Oracle integration. You must step out of the code editor and into the boardroom, architecting the strict validation pipeline that prevent the AI sprawl from occurring in the first place. Phase 6. The sovereign execution protocol, escaping the crisis. We have diagnosed the tokenmaxxing frenzy, exposed the brutal divide between the lazy and the craftsmen, mapped the despair of bot sitting, and analyzed the enterprise trap of an AI sprawl. The final phase is your immediate execution blueprint. If your craft is dead and your professional identity is bordering on depression, how do you engineer an exit from the psychological graveyard? You must deploy the sovereign engineering pivot. Step 1. rejecting the bot-sitting burden. If you're a craftsman, you must immediately stop acting as a biological safety net for a lazy engineer and their AI hallucination. You cannot scale your biology to match the volume of the LLM. When you accept the burden of understanding and reviewing every synthetic pull request, you enable the toxic culture. You must force the system to feel its own pain. Let the low-tier code fails in staging. Do not sacrifice your mental health to mask the structural flaw of your organization's AI implementation. Step 2. Automate the verification layer. You must fight AI with AI. Do not manually review AI-generated code. Build autonomous zero-trust verifications pipeline. If a lazy engineer submits an AI-generated update, your deployment pipeline must automatically run it through a secondary, highly rigid LLM, configured strictly for security, syntax, and architectural compliance auditing. Force the machine to review the machine. Reclaim your biological bandwidth. Step 3. Pivot from code to architecture. If the craft of writing manual software is truly dead, you must mourn it and move on. The new craft is a deep logic architecture. Do not define your identity by ability to write a React component or a Python script. Define your identity by your ability to orchestrate multi-agent swarm. You must transition from being a bricklayer to becoming the city planner. Master the design of RAG, the retrieval augmented generation databases. Master cloud, FinOps to control the cost of the AI sprawl. You must elevate yourself above the code editor and become the executive who dictates how the AI is deployed. Step 4. Execute the lateral migration. If you're trapped in a 10-plus-year-old legacy company with high talent variation, then that refuses to fix its token-maxing culture, you must leave. Your identity crisis will not be solved by HR wellness seminars. It is a structural problem requiring a structural exit. Target hyper-lean, AI-native startups where the entire team consists of craftsmen operating at the architectural level. Or pivot into the high-ticket independent consulting. Sell your ability to cure AI sprawl to other executives who are currently watching their engineering team collapse. Phase 7. The architect of momentum. Look closely at the IDE open on your screen right now. Look at the hundreds of lines of code generated in seconds by an algorithm waiting for your biological brain to read, process, and validate them. You are engaging in a fundamentally unnatural, biological, exhausting act. You are feeding your human intellect into a synthetic wood chipper. The 2026 automated economy is completely unforgiving to an engineer who refuses to evolve. If you allow your corporation to turn you into a full-time bot sitter, you will be consumed by the very technology you helped build. The era of traditional software craftsmen is transforming. It is a violent, depressing transition for many. But within this chaos lies massive asymmetrical opportunity for the operator willing to adapt. Stop carrying the burden of understanding for the lazy algorithms and lazy peers. Liquidate the ego tied to writing manual code. Elevate your perspective. Build the automated verification pipeline. Pivot to the sovereign architecture. And force the global economy to pay you an absolute premium for governing the machine rather than cleaning up its mess. Process the data, execute the strategy, and I will see you at the top.